Hello, it's John Heaton, and I'm back after the Christmas break, and I'm just going to show you a few goodies I picked up over Christmas, starting with the alternative ABBA new album artwork from HMV, with the 4 pictures, and particularly notable for the superb coloured vinyl yellow here. I think it's available in other colours, but I just picked up the one here for the coloured vinyl, and because it had alternative front cover, so that's nice. Second hand, I picked up this album for completeness sake, ABBA the first 10 years, the singles, and partly because I thought it was quite a cheeky title when it first came out in 1982, because everyone kind of thought it was the end of ABBA, and as we know now, it wasn't. So it was actually quite a prophetic title, and reasonably interesting track listing, although somewhat repetitive compared to some of the other greatest hits albums we have out there. This is an interesting album which my friend Andrew Brooks traded me. I gave him an Indian Band on the Run on the Green Apple, and he gave me this Songs of London from Capital Radio, which has, among other things, Wings' London Town as the opening track, and it's on lovely blue vinyl. It's also got Waterloo from ABBA, because of the Waterloo Station connection, although Waterloo is obviously in Belgium, the place. It's got Donovan, Sunny Gooch Street, and it's got Streets of London by Ralph McTell, and it's got a Joni Mitchell song. It's quite an interesting album, I haven't played it yet. Now this was a good find. It's not an original, this is a reissue of Traffic's first album, US pressing, in lovely orange vinyl. And this is different from the UK pressing because they left out a couple of tracks and put on the Paper Sun and Hole in My Shoe, the singles. And also from the artwork, they've left Dave Mason out completely, even though he features on this album. He'd left the group by the time the album came out in the US. Then he rejoined for the second album, and he was on the third album, and then he left, and then he rejoined to join them live in '71. Very complicated history of this band, but anyway, I really like this US version. I think it actually might be more complete than the UK version in this instance. Very happy to pick up the Vapors. This is their second album, Magnets, and my son picked up the first album because I already had the first album on the US version, but he picked up the UK copy, and it's on lovely clear vinyl. And it was very, as I say, I discovered these in FOP in Shaftesbury Avenue, and had no idea that they were re-released, and about time too. And then I discovered the other day there's a new album from them from last year on Spotify, which I completely passed me by, and so we listened to that. That was pretty good. Fleetwood Mac, Bare Trees. I've loved this album for a few months now, having picked it up on CD, and this was very nice to have. This is the one with Danny Cohen and Bob Welch, as well as Christine writing the songs, and yeah, I look forward to playing that. Then we've got various books to show you, and this is a book I got given for Christmas. The Beatles, Bob Dylan, Beach Boys Listen to Each Other and Change Music Forever. It's got no pictures, no at all, or even on the cover or inside, but I've started reading it. It's quite interesting. And then James Griffiths kindly sent me a signed copy of his new book on Squeeze, which apparently is doing pretty well in the Amazon charts, and look forward to, and it's a signed copy. Thanks, James. I look forward to reading that in due course. I've got a bit of a backlog, but I'll get to it. And then the beautiful Get Back book. I picked that up. It was waiting for me in London when I got to London, and very happy to have that. Good value it was, the price, and superb intro from Peter Jackson, where he talks about the story of got the train to Wellington. He was on his way to a toy shop to buy an Airfix model. He'd saved up some money, and he passed a record shop on the way and saw the Red and Blue album and decided to buy those instead. And that kind of changed his life forever. And so he said at the end of the foreword, one thing I'd like to say to the 11-year-old Peter Jackson for stopping in that record shop window and buying the Red and the Blue. Thanks, mate. Because he, by the way, not only have I been watching Get Back, his superb new Beatles documentary, but also I picked up a DVD copy of They Shall Not Grow Old, the World War One thing he did in 2018, and it's outstanding. I've watched it twice. It's only 96 minutes long, which is quite short by Peter Jackson standards, but it's a riveting piece of work, highly recommended. So back to the Get Back book. Very intelligent essay written by Hanif Kureishi, who's an accomplished English writer. He wrote The Buddha of Suburbia, among other things, to which David Bowie contributed the soundtrack. And nice liner notes from John Harris, and it's got, I'm not going to show you too many, but beautiful pictures. And if you think you've got everything from having the original Get Back book, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the amount of pictures in here that you haven't seen. And it follows the structure of the documentary, and then it goes through the days chronologically, and which I think is a good way to do it. And yeah, Peter Jackson said he wasn't sure whether a book format would work, but I think, as he says, it's an alternative way of looking at it. And I've read it all the way through already, and I think there are times when you want to watch the documentary, and there are times where you just want to sit and read a book and look at the pictures, and I think it works very, very well. I'm very happy to find that. And then this is another book which I'd ordered, which was waiting for me in London. This is the Beatles solo on Apple Records by Bruce Spicer, who's a US guy. He's actually a tax attorney by trade normally, but he writes a few books on the side. And there's another volume of this covering the Beatles on Apple, but this is the Beatles solo on Apple, so he's covering all of the solo releases from 1970 to 1975, which is when Apple Records stopped issuing stuff. And in immense detail, it's going through the releases of each album with the artwork, with the adverts which came out in Billboard to promote the various albums. This in many ways is an enlarged version of Working Class Heroes by Neville Stannard, which came out in '82. This is altogether bigger and it's in more detail. The only thing I'd say about it is it covers just the US Apple releases, so I would like to have seen the book cover European and other countries such as New Zealand, because there's some interesting Apple releases there, and also South America, but I guess the book would have been humongous if that was the case. It's already a very heavy book and very welcome, and I found it quite educational. And I found out, for example, Capitol had four pressing plants in the US, and Bruce Spicer differentiates according to the label which pressing plant pressed which single, the four being Los Angeles, California, Winchester, Virginia, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Jacksonville, Florida. And I noticed Scranton is also the place where, is it Scranton or Scranton? Sorry if I've pronounced it wrong, but it's the same town that Michael Scott ran the paper company in The Office, the US version of The Office. So that was it. Can you imagine Michael Scott overseeing a Capitol pressing plant? Would have been a disaster, I think. Anyway, as I say, no UK, no European, no Yugoslav, which features in my collection. But as I say, it's a big enough book as it is. And I picked up a few US singles, and I was able to identify, for example, this guitar, Can't Keep From Crying, is a Los Angeles pressing from Capitol. And this copy of Helen Wheels, although it doesn't have an Apple sleeve, is also Los Angeles. A bit disappointing, the US singles, that they're missing the middle. I always found that a bit of a shame. Same with the European pressings. It tends to be just the UK ones, which are full with just a small hole in the middle. But anyway, that's fairly minor criticism. That's a superb book. I will be picking up the Beatles volume as well, because that covers not only the late 60s releases on Apple, but also the post-split Apple releases such as the Red and the Blue and the Anthology and the BBC recordings, which also came out in Apple on Apple in the 90s, the last two. So that was my Christmas goodies which I picked up. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.